received a comment recently asking for my opinion on handbag brands and their exclusivity and how that affects people emotionally and in terms of self-esteem, and how that exclusivity factor can result in shaming other people. And I think it's going to be a really interesting discussion, so stay tuned. Hi YouTube, Autumn Beckman here. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. My channel is all about luxury living on a budget, from high-end luxury handbags and small goods to the everyday luxuries of life. If that sounds interesting to you, please make sure you subscribe, click the bell notification icon to be notified when I post new videos, and be sure to like the videos that you enjoy. And one of the perks of subscribing to this channel is you get to see my community post on your YouTube homepage, where I post deals, discount codes, sales, and rare finds related to these beautiful things we love. I'm going to start by reading this comment to you, and it's not short, it's about 4 paragraphs long, but she makes a lot of really interesting and thought-provoking points. So I wanted to do a whole video instead of just typing out a response, because I think it would be very interesting to start a conversation about this and hear what you guys think too. I got this comment on my video called My Unpopular Luxury Opinions that came out recently, and it's by Taliluna3746. So here's what they say. Why do you buy Louis Vuitton bags when, and then there's a bullet point list of reasons not to. 1, the store essays are rude to people that don't fit the brand. 2, the store essays lie about availability because you don't fit the brand or you aren't a loyal customer. 3, there are so many fakes made of Louis Vuitton that many people may think that you are carrying a fake. And 5, no, that's 4, it's a luxury brand and nothing more than a brand. The quality of the bags isn't that great. It's a canvas bag with printed logos and just a little bit of leather. For me personally, I prefer the quality of the leather and construction, the value for the money, the design aesthetic over brand recognition. I love vintage Coach handbags for their amazing leather and their simplicity of the design. No big logos, no bling, just beautiful leather bags that last for decades. I also don't want to associate myself with a group of people, meaning the LV execs and employees, who think I should look or dress a particular way to be a true member of their brand. That goes against my morals and values, and I want to truly stand by those values and not participate in any way with any brand that plays that game. When I meet someone new, I want them to see me and not the brands I wear, which is why I never wear anything that shows a logo or any identifier. But that's me. I have a dear friend who collects LV bags. She came from a family that struggled financially. She's mentioned that she was teased in school for her clothes, and it left an emotional scar. But it seems, I could always be wrong, that she's trying to convey that she has arrived and is now worthy, yet she was worthy from day one. To me, purchasing exclusive or exclusionary luxury brands continues the pattern of shaming that my friend experienced in high school, albeit in a much more subtle way. Don't we need to end those games? The way to do that is to truly be free of trends in brand popularity or exclusivity. Tell me your thoughts. I know they'll be thoughtful and intelligent. Thank you for that. That was a very thoughtful and intelligent comment. That's why I wanted to do this video. I just think she brings up so many great points. And I think that these are all things that we have dealt with at some point in our love of these nice handbags, whether it be Louis Vuitton or Coach or whatever else. So let's go through this point by point, because I want to make sure I'm being thorough in addressing what she's talking about. And I absolutely agree that this happens. I don't know if anybody could argue that it doesn't. I feel like it's inarguably factual, a lot of what she's saying here, the general premise of it, that there is an exclusivity associated with the brands, and that there can be snobbery around it that makes other people feel less than if they don't have those brands. So in the first paragraph, she lists 4 reasons that people shouldn't want to participate in purchasing Louis Vuitton bags. The first one, store essays are rude to people that don't fit the brand. Now, I would say let's expand this beyond Louis Vuitton first of all, because this can be said of a lot of the big brands in luxury. I've definitely seen this happen. I have felt it happen, but I've also, more often than that, much more often than that, felt very welcomed. Let's keep in mind that these stores are made up of sales associates whose job it is to sell, and who often are earning a commission or some sort of percentage based on what they sell, rather than having a situation where they're paid a salary to be there, and if you buy something, great, and if you don't, it doesn't affect them. Which connects to the second point: the store essays lie about availability because you don't fit the brand or aren't a loyal customer. Because of how the this is set up, the people who are more frequent customers or who can afford to be more frequent customers do tend to get better treatment in terms of things like reserving certain bags for them, being told in advance about new releases, given the opportunity to purchase bags before they're even released, before the general public knows about them, being offered things like made-to-order bags. The reason behind that, I don't think it's because the sales associate thinks the person looks a certain way or fits the brand. My guess, trying to come from the perspective of a sales associate, is that they're treating these customers better because it drives sales, which drives their income. If they know that they have a client who can afford to buy more and who wants to buy more, of course you're going to cater to them so you can bring in more sales. And that is driven, that exclusivity of certain lines. Let's think of something that happened recently. Maybe some of the Fendi baguettes as part of the big anniversary release of the Fendi baguettes. With some bags, there were only a certain number released. Why even put them on the shelves for the general public if you know that you have a client who will buy it? And months in advance, too. So that could be a reason that people may lie about availability. It wouldn't really be lying because they've already got the bag set aside for someone else. So it would be true that the bag's not available. Now, if we're talking about Louis Vuitton availability, that does get tricky because they have things. Let's talk about something like the Speedy. I thought the Speedy would always be available, but there was a time maybe a year ago when it was hard to get, maybe 2 years ago. And I have definitely seen discrepancies on availability at Louis Vuitton. You can go on the website and find one bit of information. You can ask your sales associate, get different information. In my experience, that has to do with the software at Louis Vuitton and not that the associate is lying to you. I'm not saying that never happens, but they do seem to have some discrepancies there in their software. Point number 3, there are so many fakes made of the brand that many people may think you are carrying a fake. Now for me, this is different for everybody. Some people agree with that. I don't care if anyone thinks I'm wearing a fake because I don't care about what anybody else thinks of me unless it's somebody in my personal life that I do actually care about and whose opinion matters to me. Generally, I just don't care what other people think. I care what I think. And if I'm carrying a fake, then I know I'm carrying a fake and I'm okay with it. If I'm carrying a real bag, then I know it's a real bag and I'm okay with that too. It doesn't matter to me what other people think. And I don't think it should matter to anyone else, but that opinion shouldn't matter to you because you should think whatever you want to think. Point number 4, it's a luxury brand and nothing more than a brand. 100% agree on that. A brand is a brand. It is nothing more than just a brand. And then of course brands are associated with things like marketing and the perception that they put out about the idea of who the company is, what kinds of values they have, and then of course the products that come from that brand. But the brand itself is separate from the products, or can be separated. They're also connected. Does that make any sense? Branding is one thing, products are another thing. They're associated, but they're different. They go on to say it's a canvas bag with printed logos and just a little bit of leather. That's true. And there are a lot of people who downplay the quality of Louis Vuitton bags or dismiss the canvas bags altogether. Like I've heard people say, you know, it's stupid to pay that much money for a canvas bag. I would say yes and no. Is it financially worth that much money in terms of just value of goods? No, you're definitely paying for the name and the branding. But does that mean it's low quality? Also no. Now a lot of these luxury brands are having quality issues for the last few years, but I love the coated canvas bags from Louis Vuitton and I go in knowing what they are. I think some of the problem here is that a lot of people assume they're leather, but they're not. Not that they don't sell leather bags, but the canvas bags are not leather. All you have to do is look at them and touch them to figure that out. But as long as you know you're buying a coated canvas bag, there shouldn't be any problem. I mean, that decision is up to you. If you don't want to pay that much for canvas, then you don't. But if you do, then you do. I love their coated canvas because I find it very durable. More durable than leather in my experience. For example, a Neverfull. A leather Neverfull is more likely to get corner wear, in my experience, than a coated canvas one. I'm good with coated canvas. I don't see it as any less than leather. This person says they prefer the quality of leather and construction, value for the money, and design aesthetic over brand recognition. A lot of people agree with that and feel the same way. For me, it depends on the brand. When it comes to something like Louis Vuitton, I am paying for the name. I'm also paying for quality. It's not a one or the other thing. You don't have to choose, you can get both. If I'm going for a brand like Coach, I care less about the name and the branding and how visible it is that it's a Coach bag versus a Louis Vuitton bag. I also, by the way, don't care. Like I have Louis Vuitton bags that you don't know it's Louis Vuitton unless you know it's Louis Vuitton. If you're not familiar with Louis Vuitton, you can't look at it and tell. Coach bags, same thing. I don't have any Coach bags that have the monogram CC print all over it. I do have several that have the C on them. But if you don't know that that means it's Coach, then you're not going to know. Again, I don't care what other people think. I don't care if somebody knows what kind of bag I'm carrying or how expensive it is or what kind of prestige might be associated with the bag. Maybe a lot of people do. I'm not one of those people. I buy what I like, I carry what I like and what works for me, and that's how it works for me. They go on to say, I love vintage Coach handbags for their amazing leather, simplicity of design, no big logos, all that. I agree. I love vintage Coach too. I have several of those. I carry them sometimes, and sometimes I carry Louis Vuitton that has LV's plastered all over it. Again, I just don't think it's an either or. This person probably doesn't either, but the way the argument is set up, it makes it sound like if you're carrying Louis Vuitton or another big name brand, that it's going to have giant logos all over it and that everybody's gonna know that that's an expensive bag. Whereas if you carry one that's not, nobody's gonna know and it doesn't have those logos. And that's not the case. There are subtle Louis Vuitton bags and in-your-face Louis Vuitton bags. There are subtle Coach bags and in-your-face Coach bags. They present a variety of different designs for a variety of different consumers. And a single consumer can buy things from any of those collections. So one person can have screamy, shouty bags and also have low-key under-the-radar bags or no-name bags. And they can both be excellent quality. But now we're getting more into the underlying point of this argument, which gets into the exclusivity and the shaming. I don't want to associate myself with a group of people, meaning the LV execs and employees, who think I should look or dress in a particular way to be a true member of their brand. I would argue that that's not how they feel. I would argue that, again, it's all about sales. They don't really care who's buying this stuff, they just want it bought. I have a whole video on this actually, I did a couple years ago, called Louis Vuitton is Not for Poor People. And it's all about how it is. The thing about these brands is it's all about, and any brand really, but you can really see that with these luxury brands. It's all about a perception of luxury and a perception of exclusivity and a perception of a certain lifestyle and a certain look. But that perception does not align with who their real clients are. Let me tell you a story I don't think I've mentioned before. I was in a movie theater once, years ago, and it was before the movie. They had ads up, and this ad came on. It was really well done, it was beautiful, and it appeared to be all about travel, traveling the world. In the very last couple of seconds, they revealed what the ad was actually advertising, which was Louis Vuitton. Because, of course, Louis Vuitton started as a luggage company for travel, they still incorporate travel into a lot of their ads. And this ad represented a couple who, to be able to do what they're doing, the kind of travel they're doing, had to have been pretty well off financially, because what they were doing were kinds of travel that were exclusive to people with a lot of money. But in the real world, at least in certain places, big cities, you see Louis Vuitton everywhere, and not that many people are that well off. Louis Vuitton's target customer really is not that high tier, ultra wealthy person. It's the average person. The average person who aspires to that kind of idea, a higher lifestyle than what they have, and they feel like they can get a piece of it by owning Louis Vuitton. It's aspirational. And the people at the top know this. They know who their customers are. The sales associates, they know who their customers are. Not that there aren't very wealthy people who go in and buy bags, but most Louis Vuitton customers aren't that. This person goes on to say that this goes against, and this is people who think that you should look a certain way to fit in with a brand, that this goes against their morals and values, and I want to stand by those values by not participating in that game. And when I meet someone new, I want them to see me, not see the brands. So again, what I'm interpreting here is perception, and this goes both ways. So they're saying they want to wear understated bags, not bags with flashy brands, because they don't want to be judged for those bags, positive or negative. But they're also assuming that the other people is going to judge them for it, which isn't always the case. And even when it is, it can go a few different ways because you don't know what somebody else is thinking and you can't control their thoughts. A lot of people, a lot of us, have really positive associations with brands like Louis Vuitton because we're really into handbags and we appreciate them and we've learned about them. We like them and we want them. But there are a lot of people who have very negative associations with the brands. And some of that's coming from what they're talking about in this comment, that there's been some experience with exclusion. And that's something that I think is very important when we use the word exclusivity to talk about these brands. I think when a lot of people talk about exclusivity, or I want this bag because other people don't have it, it's hard to get get. I don't want to have a bag that everybody else has. That's exclusivity. And that can be seen in a positive way. Like, oh, I have this thing that's so special. But the other side of that coin is exclusion. You can't have exclusivity without having exclusion. And that's what she's talking about here. There's this negative side of this perception of luxury brands that can make people who are excluded feel bad. And there are people who make those people feel bad. And they're saying the executives and the sales associates participate in that, but also judgy people like the high school students she's talking about judging her friend. So again, that paragraph is, I have a dear friend who collects LV bags. She came from a family that struggled financially, and she's mentioned that she was teased in school for her clothes, and it left an emotional scar. But it seems, I could be wrong, that she's trying to convey that she has arrived and is now worthy. Yet she was worthy from day one. I can so relate to this paragraph as the friend she's talking about, because I had that happen growing up. I came from a family that struggled a whole lot financially, and I live in a place where brands are important. And like in middle school, I remember people wearing certain brands of jeans or certain t-shirts. You want to fit in at that age. You want to be like everybody else, and so you want to have the same clothes to feel like you fit in better, even though it really has nothing to do with that. I was never teased about not having those things, so it really stinks that this person was. And in that sense, I can't relate to that. But I do definitely remember having a sense of not feeling as good as other people or as worthy as other people who did have those things, which is ridiculous because they're just things. But of course, what it represented, or the perception of what it represented, was that the people who had the things also had money. Of course, in reality, that's not what it means, at least not necessarily. And of course, money has nothing to do with your personal value as a human being. I also remember the very first time I went into a luxury store. It was when I lived in New York when I was in college. It was a Louis Vuitton store, and I definitely, walking around the streets of New York, there were several stores I was curious to go in, knew that I could afford nothing in there, but I wanted to go in and look anyway, and I was very, very intimidated to do so. And I remember walking up to this Louis Vuitton, and it was the Fifth Avenue store, and they had a doorman, and I had never come across a store before that had a doorman. Someone opens the door for you. Like, what world am I walking into here? And then I go in, and there are bags behind glass cases, and it was just a totally different shopping experience, and I definitely felt intimidated. I felt like I didn't belong there. But when I look back on that experience, no one treated me badly. That was all in my head. That was all about my perception of belonging and of worth, and my perception that other people were going to see that and think the same thing of me. It had nothing to do with the reality of what was going on and how people were treating me. Nobody was rude. The next time I went into a Louis Vuitton was when I was in Houston, and I went in to purchase my first handbag. No, it wasn't. I was in New Orleans, and I went to look at a Neverfull, and then a few months later I went and bought one at the Houston store. That's what happened. And I was more confident those times, but nowhere near as confident as I am going in now. At this point, I have evolved because I've had enough experience with handbags and sales associates and being in those stores. I'm also more confident with my financial position, that I know I do belong, because I know that everyone belongs in those stores. They don't care. Like, you might run across a sales associate every once in a while that does, and I have heard of some stores where the culture there is rude to people. But in general, based on my experience and what I've heard from you guys, that's just not the case. It's like shopping at any other store, except it's a little fancier. The procedures are a little different. It can help if you know more about the merchandise, because they don't have it all sitting out. If there's something in particular that you're looking for, you have to know to ask for it. Maybe I should do a video on that too. Some of the things you need to know if you're new to luxury shopping. And speaking of that, why don't you guys give me some ideas for that, if you don't mind. Do my work for me, please. What should be included in that video? What are some tips that you have for people who are new to the luxury shopping experience, particularly for handbags, because it is a little different world out there. So this last paragraph in the comment, it says, to me, purchasing exclusive or exclusionary, they see that dichotomy there, luxury brands continues the pattern of shaming that my friend experienced in high school, albeit in a much more subtle way. Don't we need to end those games? And the way to do that is truly to be free of trends in brand popularity or exclusivity. So for me, again, I think it's all about perception from lots of different perspectives too. I think if your perception is that these brands are exclusive and exclusionary and that you're going to be treated badly and that you don't belong there or whatever, then that's what you're going to feel when you go in, generally speaking. I think if you feel the way I do, that you do belong and it's just a store, and the people who work there, I used to be intimidated by them because I thought they were judging me, but again, that's in your head. The people who work there are just like us. They're people who go to work every day. They generally can't afford to buy the handbags that they're selling, just like a lot of us can't afford to just walk into the store and buy whatever we want either. And I see some people making that point and using it to put sales associates down, and let's not do that, please, because they're people just like we are. It just really, I keep saying this, it all comes down to perception. There have been these like myths built up around the luxury shopping experience. It has to do with marketing. I mean, that's where all this is coming from, right? People perceive a brand that's very expensive like Louis Vuitton to mean a certain thing about someone's worth, and then they judge other people based on that. That's not even the brand doing it, that's people in the world. But basically it just comes down to perception. What is your perception of the brand? What is your perception of people? What's your perception of bags? And who carries the bags? And one of the big things I try to do on this channel is break through those perceptions and misconceptions and the judgment. I talk about that pretty frequently. I don't think we have to stop buying the brands or wearing the brands or wearing things that have logos all over them. I think we just have to stop being judgmental toward each other. It's a difficult thing to do because it's natural for humans to divide ourselves between us and them and to separate people into different groups and hierarchies of various sorts. But once you're aware that we do that, it's easier to recognize it in yourself when you're doing it, or recognize it in other people when they're doing it to you or doing it to someone else. And it's easier to see what it is and to not believe it. It's easier to notice that's just their perception and their misguided perception. That doesn't mean that the judgment they're making is true. It says more about that person than it does about you. That's the whole point of the mean comments videos that I do, is to educate people on that, so that when you receive mean comments, and of course this comment is not mean, it's very well written and very thought out, but the point is when you receive those comments that you don't take them personally, you don't let them affect your worth, your value, your self-esteem, because they're about the person making them, not about you. So I think my big takeaway on this would be to be aware of the marketing, to be aware of the perceptions, to be aware of the judgment, and to see the bags for what they are, which is bags. And if you're willing to pay more because it has a certain name on it or a certain logo, fine, that's your choice. But it doesn't mean anything in reality. It doesn't mean you're better. It doesn't mean someone else is better who's carrying something that you can't afford yet. It doesn't mean someone else is less than because they can't afford it yet, or just don't want to. Most people just don't care about this stuff at all. We tend to forget on YouTube, when we're immersed in these videos in this community, that we're really a pretty small percentage of the population here who cares about handbags. So yeah, I think that would be it. I hope I addressed that well enough. I feel like it was a little all over the place. Perception's the word of the day. Thank you to Tolly Luna who left this comment. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I do appreciate it. Hope to see you back here next time, and I hope you all have a fantastic day. Bye.